Okay, guys, so welcome everyone. The recording is on from now on. It's going to be on YouTube. And before we delve into the webinar, I just want to tell you that this webinar has been organized for the weekly fasting group, which is a very big WhatsApp group of individuals who practice the habit of fasting, of abstinence from food for 24 hours every week. So that's the uniting point of all the members of the group. And in between, we discuss different things related to nutrition, spirituality, healing, and other related subjects. So this group operates on WhatsApp. My name is Arik. I am the operator of this group and the moderator. And you will find, in case you are watching this video after this particular event and these ideas appeal to you, you will find my WhatsApp number below the video, and you are welcome to send me your name and I will happily add you to the group. Today we have PurEL Maor, and we are going to talk about many interesting subjects. And actually, I don't know what we'll be talking about, so you will tell us. But anyway, we will start with a short guided meditation just to get us grounded, and and then we will delve into our subject. So PurEL, over to you.
All right, thank you for being here, everybody. I really appreciate all of you, and I hope that we can spend a nice time together and create a nice impact for everyone. And yes, so we'll start with a nice and short meditation. If you can all close your eyes and start to take a few deep breaths. And while you're breathing, what I will ask you to do is to take 2 fingers and to place them just between your chest and try to set the intention while you're breathing to feel your heartbeat. With each breath, you become more aware of your heart beating. And now I want you to visualize a person that you can call it your higher self, your future self, your upgraded self. Just try to see, don't have to be specific. Try to feel that kind of person. How does he look like? How does he feel? He or she feels. And try to visualize this person. The person that you are becoming or you want to become. And then I want you to visualize almost like a bar from 0 to 100 that shows the level of integration of your higher self into your body in this moment. And it could be on 10%, it could be on 30%, whatever it is. And once you see that, I want you to set an intention to ask for your highest good and in the most benevolent way for the good of everybody around you, but specifically for yourself. Where do you want to change that to? Do you want to install more of your higher self into your body, your higher potential? If so, you can use your imaginary hand and move that bar from wherever it is now, either all the way to 100% or less, and visualize that. And once you move that, imagine that now it's starting to download, and it's downloading until you see a green check mark that, oh, download complete. And now I want you to visualize another thing. I want you to visualize another bar that is related to the harmony in your life, the coherence in your life, inside of you and for everybody around you. Your ability to create harmonious environments around you, your ability to progress in an enjoyable way in your life, in your healing journey, in health, in everything around feeling good. And then again, you can move that and change the numbers to be at a higher ability than before. And once you've done that, you can see the download is completing. And take a few more deep breaths. And set an intention to be centered, to be here now, to receive today what is the best value for you, what you need to get out of it. And you can set any other intention that comes to your mind as well, if now is the moment. And then thank yourself for the vulnerability to talk to your body, and thank your body as well for listening to you. And yes, thank you guys.
Okay, PurEL, thank you so much. It was a really special meditation. I haven't encountered lots of meditations so far that use this particular kind of visualization. So it's really unique. Really liked it. Yeah. Okay, PurEL. So look, there are many people who don't know you yet, don't know much about you, about your mission, about your life story. So if you could share that with us, it would be greatly appreciated so that we know the background.
Perfect. Yes. And by the way, guys, today, I have so many subjects I can talk about, but it's always good if somebody has something particular that he would like to jump into, we can do that. And Arik, I also prepared some subject I sent to you before that if we need to dive deeper, we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely, PurEL. So the most successful action during those webinars is that the speaker talks something like 10-15 minutes, and then we open up the microphones for questions, and then we get back to the speaker, very informal, very
perfect,
free flow. Yeah.
Yes. So for me, my story, wow, there's a lot of things, but I will try to say it in a good amount of time. I was when I was super young, I was a happy kid, always running around, in school, doing everything. And one day, I think there was a day that I got glasses, my mom got me glasses to wear. And since that moment, I had some trauma, and I start to get, at that moment, I didn't know, but later on, I realized that I got more shy, depressed, start to distance myself from other kids. And in that time, since I was 11, I was always interested actually in creating things. And I even I opened kind of my first businesses online since I was 11. And I remember my grandmother telling me, oh, one day you can do amazing things, with websites and this and that. And in the beginning, I didn't understand what this would lead to. Now we are in health topic, but this was a journey. And so, yeah, as I developed as a kid, I did a lot of things, a lot of, as I mentioned, different businesses. And then, but it got more difficult because, by the way, I was playing professional sports, playing handball in Israel, all the way to playing in the national team, 4 teams in the same time, school team, adults team, young team. And yeah, and it was always like interesting because I always loved sports, but school, I really didn't like school, and it got like really difficult because I felt like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm really bored. It's not, especially when I did start to do other things online that were interesting for me. And I learned even from speakers, like we are learning here today. Like, I was studying already when I was young, different things about spirituality and mindset and self-development. And this is also how I developed my English. I think in English, even though I speak perfectly Hebrew because I'm from Israel. So in the same time, I had this very serious anxiety, and it got like really down to the point I was very depressed. I didn't know what to do. I felt to quit school. So I quit school around the age of 16. And and from there, somehow the business gave me some confidence. I was selling, at that time, I got to a point that I create new products, innovative products, can be everything you can imagine. And I learned how to sell them on Amazon, and that was interesting. And through that business, I started to travel, I met people, I got more confidence, in myself. And so I did a lot of things like that. And through the years, now in perspective, I realized that a lot of my depression and things like that started to heal as I started to change how I was eating, to eat lighter and lighter foods. In the beginning, when I was traveling, I met some people that says, oh, if you don't eat meat, we tried it and we felt a lot better. So I tried some of these things, and in perspective, later on, I realized that little by little, as I adjusted the way I was eating, it was easier for me not to be depressed, not to be anxious. But anyways, also in Israel, for me, it felt like a lot of people are very masculine energy and this, and I needed to discover more of the feminine energy inside of me. And so by traveling more around the world, getting out of my comfort zone, I went all the way to Brazil, nobody speak English there. Then I went to another thing. And so I went from this very, very down, like everybody in their life go like this, straight with little problems. But I went so down. And then suddenly I said, oh, it's either nothing or I have to improve myself. And then I kept going up, and then it never stopped. I never stopped going out of my comfort zone, doing things, studying things, improving my well-being. And in the last 7 years, I met my girlfriend, as we talked before, while I was traveling. And she knew a lot of things about vegan food, vegetarian, and so on. And by meeting her, I even went through another journey, of changing myself. And and then in the last 7 years or so, I changed to eat plant-based food. And I felt like, in some ways, I felt a lot better, right? I felt a lot lighter. I lost some weight in a good sense. And I always remained an athlete in my heart, right? So I always loved to work out, to do things, lifting weights and so on, running, playing tennis, all kinds of things. So it was interesting to see how does that impact the performance. And then in the last, what happened 3 years ago is that all of a sudden I had an appendix that, come up, and then it's like they said like, oh, you can die. And you have an appendix. I had an appendix surgery. I thought that I would never do a surgery in my life because I was all about natural things and so on, but it came, and somehow at that moment I didn't know how I can regenerate my appendix naturally. So I went through this, and after like that happened, I was so it was such a difficult moment, because you go out of it, your stomach hurts, you cannot move, you cannot do sports or all the things you love, and it hurts in every moment. And then I added a lot of weight because of that and so on. And then I really realized there is more things to health that we don't know about, and we cannot wait. We have to be proactive about it. Unfortunately, most people wait until a disease hits or they get older or all of these things, but we don't have to have these issues, if we proactively figure out how to get better. And luckily for me, for many people, there's worse things, than appendix surgery. But since that moment, I start to research a lot of more healing modalities, spiritual things, fasting, even more ways to eat differently, and so on. And so I attracted a lot of these things into my life. I was always, even when I looked into different technologies, for example, for healing, I always knew that technologies are only a bridge, right? And no machine really heals you, but it's a bridge to allow a certain environment that could make the right trigger. It's easy for your body to relearn how to heal itself. And I always looked for technology from that perspective. And then I found so many interesting things. I found that our body is actually light, and we have what's called biophotons. And some people know it as electromagnetic field or meridians, energetical pathways. And we found an inventor that Irina actually found that healed people with the worst conditions through light therapy. And he would be measuring the meridians. Here's the small intestine, here's the large intestine, and you can have specific points that are connected to the pituitary gland or pineal gland, and it goes all the way from here to your organ like a channel of energy. And you can measure that if the body needs help or not. And then you can use informational remedies similarly to homeopathy, for example, and then really work with your own light to heal itself, to almost like to awaken your inner doctor of your body. And with that tool, for example, it showed me that, yes, even though I wanted to do everything just naturally, there are some technologies that put you back in tune with nature. And that's very powerful. And then I realized, wow, of course, we found a lot of other things, a lot of other modalities, and start to resurface the idea of breatharianism, which I saw years before, but I never really could connect to it and get the logical sense behind it, right? How does it work? And I'm very good at research at what I do at work. I optimize things, I create innovative products, I coach people how to do that. And I start to use all these skills to really research and discern what is the truth out there about a lot of things. And especially recently in the last 6 months, for example, I watched a lot of videos, Arik, with you interviewing a lot of people. I think I have over 500 pages of notes, just studying and putting patterns between things, what really works, what's sustainable, what is, because I'm very, very interested in this idea of healing myself, because the more I heal myself, I realize that everything around me gets better. And then it's a very powerful thing, like, when you can help people also to feel better, and it starts to be really enjoyable. And what you realize also is that when you work to heal yourself, you are really raising your awareness, and you become more aware. You can call it oneness, consciousness, all these things. You start to have more synchronicities than before. Before you thought you have synchronicities, but now it's like, wow, it's like 10 in a row in like 5 minutes, and you start to learn how to translate these things, and you get really connected into the inner part of you that's you start to learn from inside. And also what we did, for example, with the meditation in the beginning, like, for example, you would see with a lot of people that drive fast or do a lot of deep cleaning in their body, they get to this, let's say, higher level of awareness. And what start to happen, from my experience at least, is that as we release the traumas that we have in our body, the trapped emotions and so on, it seems that you have less and less thoughts. thoughts are not necessarily what you are aware of. I have a feeling that thoughts can be trapped in your body as well. And it seems that the less and less of the thoughts that are not you that you have, the more you manifest very quickly. You start to notice that things are happening all around you, that it's exactly what you're thinking, but it's faster and faster. And my perception of it is that the more we clean ourselves, it's just only your core wishes, so to say, remain, and then they have more power. But if you are splitting yourself in 1,000 different commands, so to say, then you are never really getting to that one thing, even if you're consciously asking for it. And for example, I had an experience that recently that I realized that I want to clean my liver, right, more. And I just did that thing. I connect with my heart and I talk to my body, because before I knew these things conceptually, that talking to your body, you know, setting intention, visualizing works. But once you really start to experience that it happens very quickly, what you're thinking about, again, due to the dry fasting and all this deep cleaning, which we can get into soon, you are really aware that you have this tool and you can start to really talk to your body what you want to get out of it. And so in one moment I said, body, I want to clean today everything from my liver. And at that point, by the way, I didn't realize that it's very important how you ask for things. For example, now I know that I would ask for things to happen gently, gradually, progressively, in a harmonious way, in a coherent way, right? In the way that is for my higher self best interests, and so on. Because not always what we are aware of now is the best for us in exactly that way, right? So, but in that moment, I asked for it that way. And I think that day I was like 4 days not eating and drinking. And so it was enhanced in a sense. And in that moment, 10 minutes later, I forgot about it. And I talked to Irina, my girlfriend. I didn't realize why I was so angry. I'm never this angry since I was a child, and I was depressed. And I got so angry. And then later we did the biophoton therapy and other things, and we found that my liver is asking for help, and which is something that normally you first want to fix the hormonal system, the kidneys, and other things, the urinary tract, before you help the liver in that protocol from that area. And yeah, it was so strong. And after that, I felt a big relief. And then I went to when we did the therapy, and I went to the bathroom and came out of my body something I never saw before. Like, it was different. But in that perspective, it went. My body did what I asked, but was it right, or was it better to ask gradually? You know, so that was the lesson for me also, because in those 5 hours, I was so angry. It was so hard, right? So learning the right way to talk to your body is very important. And yeah, so a few more things about me. So yeah, we opened a center for longevity, for reverse aging in the last year, with all of these amazing technologies that we found that, again, are in tune with nature. It's from ice baths to oxygen related therapies to infrared saunas to pulse electromagnetic field therapies, to a person that does something called neuroreceptor training, that he can measure things and find trapped emotions in your body and release them, and a lot of things like that. And I felt that it was missing something like that in the world, that nobody puts all the best things in one place together so that you can really help somebody. And in addition to that, to our clients, we really recommend to them certain programs of dry fasting, because in the end of the day, the idea is you have to change your lifestyle to heal yourself, and everything else is just a support. And you know, in the last, as I mentioned, I was eating plant-based food in the last 7 years, but in the last especially 7 months, I changed to eat raw vegan foods. And suddenly, already from the first day, it was like, wow, I have so much more energy. Like, I go to 3 p.m. in the day and I realize, oh, I don't get tired like before. And you know, it's something like with energy, you never know how much more energy you can have until you experience it, because you assume this is normal. And yeah, so I felt, for me, very quickly eating raw vegan foods, I felt a lot better. And then came a detoxification period, which from my research is a normal thing, because what happened when you eat lighter, the body starts to have more energy. And now it says, hey, I have all this extra energy. Let's start to clean up, right? All the things that are from before. And then in the cleaning process, you might feel like you actually have less energy. So you have to kind of wait it out through this, and also ideally do it gradually, which is something I will explain, so that you don't have to really suffer through a detoxification period. But I had 2-3 weeks that I had some kind of flu symptoms, mucus going out, things like this, which I did not have at all for the last 5 years previous. But I knew that I felt a lot better in the beginning, so I went through it, and I knew that it's normal. And after that passed, then all the energy came back, and since then I feel so much better. But then as I was eating raw foods, I realized I still have so many cravings, right? And for burgers, for this, for that. And I was fulfilling them with dehydrated foods, with things that are heavier. And of course, one key, by the way, is if you ever change how you eat and you feel it's right for you. And by the way, always check with yourself what is right. Don't listen to me. So you always want to observe what is the emotion, right, behind the reason why do I want this burger, what is happening, and you kind of want to observe that, and you always realize there's always something behind that. And once you really face it and not hide from it, and you heal it, then that goes away. And but what I did very within 1 or 2 months after starting to eat raw foods, I started to dry fast. I started again to dive deeper into the breatharian idea, into fasting. And I came across a guy called Arik, which maybe you have interviewed him in the past. And I researched many people. I watched a ton of videos, a ton of things. I found the patterns, but him in particular resonated with me a lot, because his message was, let's do it slowly. Let's do it 1 week at a time. You can enjoy the process. And another thing he mentioned is that you don't just remove one part of energy, learn to gain another part from another way, so that was very nice. And I started to do this weekly fasting, right? 1 day a week, dry fasting. And even though in Israel, there is a Yom Kippur, a day that you're normally fast, I was always the rebel. I never did it. So I never thought that I would do it. But then from that moment, I did it once a week, and it was actually a lot easier than I thought. I thought it would be very hard to dry fast. Some people say first do fruits, first do water fasting, but I went directly to that because it felt right. And I said to myself, knowing that the healing accumulates, why do you have to make one milestone to do all at once, a certain amount of time? Let's make it permanent, because even if you add a few extra hours in the week, let's say 8 hours of dry fasting, then you're usually doing it, and it's enjoyable, it's not so hard to do. The next week, now you can do 10 with the same ease. Then the next week you can do 12, and then you can do 14 and 16. So that idea really resonated with me. And I noticed that, and one of my keys was to never take myself to the 100%. So in some moments, for example, let's say I fasted 1 day and I felt I can go longer, but it was already more than I did last week. So instead of suffering, getting to a point of like, oh, it's really difficult now, I took the win and break the fast. And then I knew that it's a progressive thing. And I used this approach, and I got pretty quickly like to more than 20 times dry fasting every single week. And it went from 1 day all the way to 3 days, and then to 5 days a week. And that was kind of my ceiling. And actually, in the middle, there was a point that I could not go beyond 3 days. I couldn't do it, even though I understood the idea. It was feeling really hard. Like also you felt like you start to not sleep. And then I had to realize what sleep really is, which we can talk about it today as well. Because a lot of people are like, oh, why I don't sleep? Is it bad? But when you realize that every single night in your life you have been dry fasting, because sleep is really like your body is forcing you to get energy by dry fasting and relaxing, like staying in a subconscious meditation essentially. So then you can cultivate lighter energies, right? So one thing I did in that moment is I saw a pattern that a lot of people that manage to get to these states of not eating and drinking for a longer period of time, yet still have muscles and feeling good, which is very important for me. Like, I don't want to do it because, especially for me, I don't have a specific disease or something that I'm fighting against. I just seek longer life. I seek feeling better. So I started to walk barefoot because, and that was interesting because I realized that there is a lot of, when you look at anything you want to charge, any computer or your phone, it's always connected to a grounding element in the plugs and everything. If there is any kind of antenna, it's always with a grounding element. And when you realize that our body is also an electromagnetic machine in a sense, or a light machine, you can call it, it's also, I realize that it can charge all these subtle energies, but the reason that it's more difficult is because we are blocking these channels. So of course we have the phones all the times in our hands, exactly where, you know, there is an energy channel here and here that you can receive or send energy, but it's the same in our feet. And then when you realize that every day you're in shoes and it's literally blocking, the rubber material is blocking this way to receive energy. So since I started doing that, I noticed a dramatic improvement in my ability to fast longer. And I felt a lot better. So that was really interesting. And in the beginning, you think, oh, I should only do it when I'm on the beach or something like that, but not in a dirty city or something like that, because maybe it's worse. But once you realize that there are free electrons everywhere around you that come from the sun, even if you're not in the sun directly, but the sun was exposed to the air. Now the air that is around you is charged with this energy. Some people call it negative ions. And in this day and age that we have so many positive ions and we are closed indoors, we are missing this in order to have harmony in the body. So it's not only if you walk on the beach, even if you walk in the city and you walk barefoot, you start to receive this extra energy. Similarly, I change all my clothes to be breathable clothes, like natural materials, because then the skin can start to breathe. A lot of people, as they go deeper into their fasting routines, they get to the 4 or 5 days, they realize that you start to notice that you breathe less from your respiratory system. And it's an interesting thing. Like, for me, at least, I can only speak from my experience and other things that other people I have watched speaking about it. But I noticed that my breath cycles start to increase. Like, there was less, it was more seconds between breaths. And I didn't realize it in the beginning. And one moment I realized, why am I not breathing? And I feel, okay, what is happening? And then, you know, another thing is if you practice Qigong, for example, and which I highly recommend, because it's a way to, while you are fasting, you will relearn how to cultivate more of the natural energies. So it's a great practice together with meditation or anything like that. But it was interesting because when you try Qigong and you get to a point that you can feel the energy in your hands and so on, when you change your breathing to actually hold your breath, don't breath, the energy in the hand double, like you feel more. So it's almost like it's you know, for somebody, a fruit can be amazing, a detoxification thing, a great thing. But for another person, it might be a poison. It really depends on where he's at. And similarly, I feel at some point is the same with breath. But either way, it's an interesting thing. And as I was changing my clothes and I walk barefoot, and by the way, a lot of people don't understand this. How can you walk barefoot everywhere? The interesting thing is that the feet, the callus in the feet start to build up. So if you gradually expose yourself to harder surfaces, but gradually the feet starts to develop callus that still keeps the sensitivity to absorb the energy, but you actually you don't have pain. So in the beginning I was walking and I was like, ow, ow, it's hurting, you know. And after, now it's like I can walk in the mountains on stones and I barely feel anything. And it's, you realize that my feet were like baby feet. Does a baby walk in 1 month? No, it takes a while. So and the other thing is my posture improved dramatically. The awareness improves because you start to notice every moment when you're stepping. Also, some people don't know that the temperature control in our body is changing, because now in August here was very hot month, but I walk and I don't feel the heat. It's almost like my body learned to re-regulate the temperature. So there's a lot of things. And so yeah, that's about that with the shoes. But yeah, I guess this is some of the story, but we can get into more particular topics if you would like.
Yeah, PurEL, I think that you're really unique because you have inquired and learned, studied very, very thoroughly lots of healing modalities. So I guess you can just observe a person, or maybe you can have some conversation with the person and then to fit exactly what that particular person needs. Yeah, and not many people have this gift like you do. So, so guys, do you have any questions so far? If you do, you are welcome to unmute yourself and just ask PurEL questions. And then we will move on with our webinar.
Arik.
Hey, hello, hello, Ravi.
Hello, hi, hello, PurEL.
Hey,
how are
Ravi.
you, sir?
Namaste, namaste.
Namaste, namaste. PurEL, you know, your thing is very impressive. I have, you know, I have one apprehension. I'm a born vegan. Okay, I'm a born vegan. Like yourself, I do a lot of workouts. I do 1 hour. I do running every day. I do some yogas, jumping jack, burpees, push-ups, sit-ups, you name it. I spend about 2 hours on my physical well-being. Okay. The maximum fasting I have done at a stretch is 2 days every week. I do it. My skepticism is to do a dry fasting is where I'm really concerned, because you know I've been listening to contradicting theories about your brain needs water, your kidney needs water. If you don't drink water for so long, you're going to, you know, brain is going to, all kinds of theories I'm hearing on the dry fasting. Also on the water fasting, I ended 2 days because I've been again listening to from the medical doctors, you know, from mainstream. They say that if you just drink water for more than 2 days, the sodium is going to dilute, the body will lack sodium, you may faint, you know, all kinds of stories. So what is your first-hand experience with both the type of fasting? What do you suggest?
Perfect. Yes. And thank you for asking the question. And I will try to answer it. And maybe it's actually starting into a few different topics that are interesting to understand, because keep in mind, like what I'm doing today, before I thought, oh, this doesn't make sense, right? So I try to logically, not just spiritually, because we all have this intuition to go in a certain way, but I try to bring all of these things that seem like spiritual, at least to bring them into a logical way, right? And one thing I noticed, because, for example, you mentioned you're eating vegan as well. One thing I realized on the journey is that eating plant-based or vegan, and even eating meat or other things like that, are actually in the same category of eating cooked food and or denatured food. And then I realized that when you eat food that is that way, you remove the water from it. And then what the body needs to do is, the body gets, when you eat that, the body needs to get that extra water to resurrect that food and kind of detox it through your system. So, you know, for example, the last 5 months, I did not drink water. Okay. And I never thought that I would do it. Like, okay, every 2 days or so, I drink some coconut water, but the amount of liquid that I consume has dramatically reduced to the point that water now, I don't feel even the need for it. But what changed? The change is when you eat raw foods, or basically not processed food, because before you think like, oh, I'm eating clean vegan cooked food, but it's clean and it's healthy. But then you realize, at least where I am now, it's like I realize, wow, I was actually eating processed food this whole time, because even there are different levels to processed food. We all know, we all can agree, regardless if we think we should eat meat or this or that, we can all agree that eating processed food is not good for us, right? But when you realize that cooking the food is processed and we are the only species out of like millions of species that cooks the food, then you realize, that's what I didn't get before. And yeah, now when I have been eating raw foods for a long time, in the beginning, I was still drinking because I'm used to when I drink, I feel better, right? But the truth is that the body doesn't want to have either too little water or too much water. Both are not good. If you look at some studies, you would see that some people die from too little water or too much water. The problem is that when you change the way you eat to eat raw food, for example, it's not a problem, but it's a mindset shift. You start to realize I'm drinking, but I feel bad when I drink. I start to, I had 2 weeks that I drink coconut water and I was like, oh, this is awesome. But at some point, like I couldn't do it anymore because I realized that I have excess water in my body. For example, like you look at patterns between people that become fruitarians, for example, and you see what's the difference between the ones that have muscles or health or feel healthy and the ones that really struggle. And some people, their skin starts to get wrinkly, and you realize that a lot of them do the juice cleansing and so on for too long. Like juice cleansing, in a way, I see the benefit of it. And so the point is, in different moments in time, something can be good for you, it can be bad, and you have to always be in this awareness state and adapt. So imagine if you're sitting in the water for an hour, your skin starts to get wrinkly, right? So it's similar if you put excess water in your body, and then the body actually needs to eat in order to kind of sponge this water out, So, but when for me, when I start to eat raw foods, the raw food just has the right combinations of water and the other substance, and it seems that it's just in a perfect balance, so it goes in and out, and then like you don't need that much excess of water. Now, in this moment, for example, sometimes I let myself to eat something that I have a craving for, like kale chips is something. Sometimes we dehydrate kales with some nuts. This is something I used to love, and now when I eat it, it's a dehydrated. So anything dehydrated, I would notice immediately that I get so thirsty, more than normal, and I would need to drink 3 coconuts or something. So that's one aspect. And what I want to mention, because you talked about dry fasting. Okay, so what I noticed, and I call this way of thinking like the progressive lighter nourishment. And I noticed that there are different areas, right? General labels, let's call them. You can say you eat everything, you eat pescatarian, you eat vegetarian, you eat vegan. And by the way, not to say one is better than another, it's just in terms of lighter foods, right? You have raw foods, you have fruits, you have whatever, liquidarian, breatharian, all of these things, right? And the thing I realize is when you try to go to skip too many steps, it's very hard for your body. So for example, dry fasting, it's like it got a lot easier for me when I started to eat raw foods, because I'm not trying to go I'm not trying to operate at two aspects that are so far away in the same time. So it got easier. But what I recommend people actually is to use the dry fasting habit as a starting point, even if they are here eating everything. But I will explain why in a second. First of all, about safety, the important thing to realize is that you are dry fasting every single day for all of your life. You have been doing that. It's nothing new. Literally your body is even forcing you to do it. And that's part of the sleep. And you can see it as evidence to it. For example, if somebody is doing intermediate fasting, which means, let's just say for the sake of the example, eating until a certain hour, and after 5 p.m. you're not eating anymore, right? But you're still drinking or doing other things like this. And you see that this improves your sleep quality because you need less fasting. So you need less sleep, or you have better quality sleep. But now, if you try to do that and then you try to dry fast from 5 p.m., so before from 5 to 8 to 9, you were still drinking water, let's say, and now you dry fast, you will notice way better sleep than the other way. So again, what does it tell you? That you kind of accumulated this energy cultivation through the fasting so that you needed less sleep. So first of all, it's just very important to understand that you have been doing it. It's just that when you try to make too big of a radical change, it's going to be tough. But if you do it little by little and you observe which components are too far away and you start to replace them also, now you're never stretching yourself too far, you know, between two directions. So you are like here, you prove little by little, you move both of them. So what I did that really helped me is by the way, I really believe in the idea of, well, belief is really the wrong word, but one of the principles I talk about is don't believe in anything, don't make 100%, always or never, because then we close doors in our brain. It's perfect to have an educated opinion at a time. You lean towards here or there, but don't be 100% sure, because what happens then is your brain literally locks the possibility for you to even listen to things. So then you cannot see the truth anymore. So, but sorry, going back into it, I noticed that, first of all, even if you want to eat lighter or to dry fast more, it's very emotional. You go through a process of really letting go of a lot of emotions. So it's important to do it gradually, right? But the problem is, if you tell yourself today, I will not eat this food again, I will not eat this, I will change completely to raw food, or I will not fulfill this craving that I usually have, now you can create some psychological difficulties, right? So instead, what worked for me is I never said to myself, I don't want to eat this anymore, I will never eat this or that. But I said, I want to try to experience. And then if I feel, I will try it again and see how it feels like to eat the other food, right? That's what I did, by the way, in the beginning with meat. When I started, like I said, I will just try 1 month not to eat meat. In the beginning, I tried, didn't work. And eventually 1 month I tried, and then I tried to eat it again. And it was like, oh, that's not the same like before. What happened? I feel so much heavier. So, and then for 9 months, I ate more fish because I wanted to fulfill this craving that the meat was missing, right? So I was doing that. And eventually, slowly, then I stopped because I found another replacement for that, but I did it gradually, even going from everything to vegan, right? So I applied in the last 7 months the same principle to the raw foods. Even in one category of vegan or raw foods, there's like 1,000 variables. That's very important to understand. And there's variables that I call beneficial elements that makes it better or worse. And the more of them you do, and I have a list of them I can share, by the way, later in the chat if it helps anybody. The more of them you do, it's not just the area of how you're eating, like vegan or this or that. There is a reason why some people that, even if you, let's say, you feel that it's better to eat more vegan, lighter food like I do, but why some people that eat that way have worse condition than people that eat beet, for example, right? So you start to realize that it's not just the label, but there's a list of like 20 things that are important that one person eating vegan might do them very well and another not. You know, for example, it's like eating organic or unprocessed, or even if you eat raw food, for example, but the food was cut before, what happens is it loses the biophoton charge that the food has. So now you lose that, you know, but nobody usually talks about that. But, you know, when you use technology, you can measure this thing. There is something called Kirlian photography, and you can see the light measurement between an organic fruit and not one that is not. And you will see that the other one has almost no light. But similarly, if you have an apple and you cut it and you wait for a while, and only after you eat it, now it has less light. So there's a lot of aspects. There is the timing of when you eat in the day, the many things. But to get again to your question, sorry that I feel like it needed a lot of background. What I would say is in this moment, you said you are doing 2 days a week of water fasting, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. I would recommend to try to do less time, the fasting even, but to try to do dry and to get to a point that is whatever it is for you, that you feel it's 80% of what I can do, right? Don't go all the way, even if it's 8 hours, as I mentioned before. Do that week. And then the next week, just try 2 more hours and see how you feel. And you will notice a lot of people don't have the patience to do things right. It's like, imagine if you apply the same for the gym and you told somebody like, from the first day, let's lift 100 kilo, right? No, it's not. You have to gradually increase, at least. And what you will notice is as you dry fast more and more, there gets a point that your body says, when I outside of the fasting days, in the normal days, you feel like you want to eat differently than you did before. So now you start to notice, this food doesn't make me feel as good. So I will eat it less and less. Instead of telling yourself before, I will not eat it. Now, psychologically, you don't create a psychological damage, but you start to question it and you eat lighter and lighter. And for me, it was, let's say I start to eat raw vegan, but then I started fasting every week, a little bit more and more. And as I was doing that, my body got more sensitive to the heavy raw foods. When I was eating all the dehydrated food, it starts to feel heavy. So, but I didn't say I will not eat them, but I start to notice, hey, I don't feel good. So, and the interesting thing, it's never like a negative thing, because what happens when you feel that the food you used to like is less suitable for you now, it feels heavy and so on. In the same moment, always, the lighter food starts to get tastier. You don't know why. Like, I never thought in my life that I would love fruits or to eat a mango or salad, but it gets tastier and tastier the more that I clean my body, and it's attracting. So it's never like you're actually suffering or something like that, at least from my experience. So I feel that the other thing is, again, with water fasting, as I mentioned, excess water in the body is not always the best. So it's better than eating the other processed food. So it leads you to a certain point of feeling better. But at some point you kind of plateau, and then it's better to go with something like dry fasting, where your body actually has total rest. Because even when you're drinking, the body is working. It doesn't have the rest. So if you gradually do the dry fasting, and you start to question the other things that you eat, how do they make you feel? And then you slightly make it lighter and lighter, the way you eat them. Now you will notice, once you stabilize on that on the same time, the dry fasting gets easier to do longer. Because a person that just eats fruits, for example, once a day, he got to the point of eating fruits once a day. It's very easy for him to fast longer because he's already used not to consume. So it's like, you have to progress on both areas of the fasting and how you eat, in a sense, so that both can increase. And these are some of the thoughts. I don't know if I answer all your questions.
Thank you, Pirol. That helps. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Do you have any more questions for PurEL?
I do. Hi, good evening.
Me too.
I wanted to ask if you can share, like, I'm also trying to be a raw vegan, and sometimes it is hard because you miss the heavy foods and also the strong tastes. Like, I don't know if I can be fruitarian. I mean, I would like to, but it's just sweet, and I know I'd miss the salty, and even I feel that gradually you get used to it. The more refined taste, like you don't need salt anymore. You feel the delicate salt in vegetables, and you don't need to enhance it. But still, sometimes I feel like I want something heavy cooked and a stronger taste. So how do you deal with that?
First of all, I would like to ask, and thank you for the question. Do you practice any form of weekly dry fasting? So that's the first thing I would recommend, because as I said, I love this idea because psychologically it works so well to progress, because you see, if you say, I will only eat fruits now, it's very hard, to move to that. As you mentioned, you have the cravings for the cooked food, for whatever it is in this moment you have the cravings for. But instead you say, for that day in the week, I'll make a break of everything. But in the other days, I can eat as I usually do. That's more reasonable deal to make with your body, But if you do the dry fasting and you choose the time that you can do consistently every week, right? If you do it every week, now it's a percentage of your total week. Like, for example, 1 day a week, it would be like 17% of the week. So now 17% of your life, you're not eating. So you start to detox and detox and detox, and it accumulates. And now you will start to lose these cravings for the cooked foods, and you will start to have more cravings for the lighter foods. But you don't have to say, in this moment, I need to stop eating cooked food. You wait until you feel it. But because you do the dry fasting, it starts to accumulate as long as you do it weekly, right? And then the other thing on top of it, I would say, is that it's very important to put a lot of time to research what are the most delicious way to eat in this new way that you are eating, right? Because that gives you a huge boost in the beginning until you get to the point of, oh, actually, yeah, that's just what I like. I don't like the previous food anymore. But in the transition time, let's say you want to transition to more raw foods instead of cooked, put like 3 hours or something, like, to just research what are the best recipes and try to make it like an interesting thing, and that makes it a lot easier. But again, before you try to remove cooked foods, add the dry fasting to your week. And in other times, eat normal. And if you stick to it for 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, you will start to notice that when you eat the cooked food, you start to feel, again, that's my experience, by the way, I'm sharing what happened to me. I don't know exactly what will happen to you, but then you start to notice, I don't like it anymore. And this becomes more tasty. So now you're not trying to skip too many steps. And that's what I would recommend, if it makes sense.
Yeah, I've been for the last 2 years, mostly raw food, but I still have the cravings. And I used to fast every week, 1 day, until all this Corona circus started and everything. And yeah, it's a good idea to get back to it. But sometimes I am mostly raw food, but sometimes you still have the cravings. You need the heavy, maybe it's emotional. I don't know. Maybe it's.
Yes. I will touch a few more points on that, because you got it right there. You see, your intuition is because the other thing is, every time you're fasting, right, or abstaining from a certain food, if it's cooked food and you're eating raw instead, is always an emotion until you heal it completely. And it's very important to observe it, to write it down. How do you feel, and where is it coming from? What are you really trying to fulfill? And it could be, love or certain type of joy or something. And try to, once you realize what it is, try to think, how can you fulfill that and not hide from it? And maybe ask yourself smart questions, right? Can I fulfill it in a more harmonious way to me now? Or something like that. And then you'll see, okay, so I don't have to do it through the food. Maybe I can do it in that way. And once you try it, you'll be surprised. You fulfill this craving of feeling joy or happiness or whatever in another way. Suddenly, this craving goes away. So it's more about becoming aware of these things. And yes, releasing trapped emotions. So that's something that is very important. And another quick thing I will say, that sometimes we get exhausted of one method, right? So you have to find more methods, right? To make it like a game. You don't have to do big steps. There's many little things that if you break it down, there could be 100 of improvements that you didn't try yet. For example, if you talk about fasting, one habit is the weekly dry fasting, right? You can also play with intermittent dry fasting. And for me, when I got stuck at some point at like I went all the way to 5 days a week. And then I noticed, wow, I cannot maintain that, and I got back to kind of 2 days. But in the same time, I started to eat more fruits instead of raw, right? So always, again, remember to balance both. So it's always they go together, not like that. But what I want to say, try, if you feel exhausted from the idea of the 1 day a week, try the idea of intermittent dry fasting. And what I mean, again, is you have a window of consumption, but specifically for all of the consumption, right? Not including your calculation, water, everything. And this is very powerful. And for example, the last few weeks, I did that. And I was eating basically naturally at that point after doing the weekly fasting for so long, 4 or 5 hours in the day, right? Eating and drinking. But once I put the awareness to it and tried from that angle, instead of just expanding the days in the week, I try to do 1 hour, 2 hours of eating and drinking in the day on days that I'm eating, not fasting, right? And in the first few days, it was challenging, but then I wrote down all the emotions and everything, and eventually it got easy. And now, for example, I eat the last week and a half, I eat once a day for an hour. Usually it's a fruit or something like that. Sometimes I also have a coconut water, something like this. And it got easier. And now the rest of the time, I don't think about food or water. So sometimes it's trying it from another angle, so it's almost like to make it like a game, so try different things. And the last thing about that, do more energy cultivation, like qigong, meditation, because these things, maybe in the beginning you think, it's so simple, so it's not, I shouldn't do it. But actually, every time that I do it, it really feels like I need to eat less, I can fast more, because you literally nourish your body in another way. So play with all of these components instead of just going head against the wall in one way.
No, you can't force yourself. You have to find the right way to work with yourself. And yes, fasting is about reset, because it's like going back, because when you eat, then you want something tastier, and you want something tastier. It's not about being hungry. It's about indulging yourself, looking for something tastier. The fruit are not enough anymore, sweet. So you're looking for a special taste, and then you eat a good salad, and then you. So maybe, fasting, you sort of just miss water, or just miss simple fruits. Yeah, it's sort of and also I like that what you said about the emotional thing, that you have to find out whether it's an emotional thing, and then to work on the emotion. And it's not about, it's a hunger. It's not hungry for food. It's hungry for love. Right?
Yeah. And the last thing I would say, because I see somebody else wants to speak, is remember the summary of what we said, like work on your emotions, try more methods. So it's you try it from more ways. And the last thing, really try while you're fasting to nourish your body in a lighter way through qigong meditation. You really feel the difference. And all of these components are important. And at some point down the line, when you try to progress and you get stuck, you realize later on that the reason you were stuck is you did not improve the rest of these elements yet. So
I do other things. I dance, I walk in the park. So it's sort of, I really like it. I feel it nourishes me emotionally, not physically.
Yeah, so amazing.
Okay, guys.
Right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Tina, you wanted to say something?
Oh, me?
No, I don't know, or anyone else?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So can you hear me? Hi.
Yeah,
hi.
Lori.
Yeah, hi. So I just wondered, I have a couple of questions. One of them is, a lot of times I've never wanted to drink a lot of water. It was really weird. Even when I cook foods, I have to force myself to drink water. And I'm so happy to hear sometimes, because, they always push you to drink, all this water, 8 glasses of water every day. And I never listened to that. But I just wondered if let's say some days I want to do a dry fast. or and then, or even like I'm doing 2-3 days dry fast, whatever it is. But then one day, and then in 1 minute, I'm like, oh, I just want a little water. So let's say I take a little water, and I just think I should go back to the dry fasting. Is it still okay, or did I screw it all up? Just if you want to do like the benefits about, because I know they say dry fasting,
Right.
like 3 days of water, and sometimes I'm dry fasting, then I'm like, oh, I don't want to torture myself, or I just need a little water, because typically I never want water, so then I feel like I should drink, and then I'm thinking, oh, am I still dry fasting? Should I still continue? Is it still beneficial?
Yes, great question, and thank you, Lori, for asking that. And yeah, so the first thing I would say, it depends. You have to experiment, right? I like the approach of not being too hard on yourself, because it's all about progression. If you did this fast 20 more times in the next year, even if it was half that time, it's more important than one time making it too difficult, right? And then suffering through it and so on, that you give up and you lose the habit.
But I just wonder, is it beneficial to keep dry fasting after, when you already took a little water, or even a glass, or
from
not
my
that
experience,
you're not suffering, but
yeah, I believe it's beneficial if you felt to do it. I don't subscribe to the idea that it completely stops everything. There is a sense to it. Of course, if you ate a burger versus water, is a big difference. Or for example, some people say about the soft or hot dry fast, like shower, not shower. But the reality is that the most important thing, like 97%, is that you fast. It doesn't matter that much if you shower or not, because over time you cleanse more. So it's similar with this. So by principle, I would say that it's not ruining anything. But one thing that I experienced when I did that, because I said the same, oh, maybe I will try to drink and after to continue. But usually what I notice is, if I drink, it follows with more cravings for eating. So, and then it's very difficult. So if for you find that you can handle that and keep going, and emotionally it's fine, then I would say probably that, yeah, you get the benefit, and that way you can prolong. But usually what I notice, at least for me, is that kind of makes it too difficult. I don't know if it's because that once you drink water and that's the only thing you kind of have in your system, now the body is saying, oh, I need food to kind of take the water out, to excess water. Or that
they do say dry fasting is easier to not have cravings.
Exactly. That's why I actually recommend people, even if they are beginners, I recommend do dry fasting. Don't start with water fasting or everything, but very important, do the amount of time that is good for you, even if it's 8 hours, and then progress. It's like, again, I like to use metaphors. So in the gym, for example, would you use in the beginning, let's say that free weights are better than machines, right? If you had a personal trainer, then would you use first the machines and after the free weight, or would you learn from the beginning to do the correct movement and with lighter weight and then progress? So I feel like dry fasting is the deepest cleanse. And so I think it's wiser to start with that, but just with the amount of hours that you can do, and then expand that. So that's about this. And by the way, one thing I want to mention about water that might be interesting that I discover is that, because many people talk about different filtering, what's the best quality water, right? And yeah, there is a difference if you filter the water compared to normal water, of course. But at some point, what I realized is that, for example, I started to drink fresh coconut water, right? That I open it and then drink it. And I realized that water has not only structured water like fruits have, which makes a big difference, but it also, because the coconut kept the liquid in that structured water, instead of, is a big difference, coconut water in a box versus in the original shape, that it keeps the biophoton and the charge of the water. So what your body is craving for actually is that charge. So the water, even if it's filtered from a good filter, which I used in the past, it doesn't have that charge. So from fruits, for example, they have the charge if you eat it fresh, right? But similarly from coconut water, that's why I felt in terms of actual liquid water, coconut water was one of the best if you even feel the cravings for water. And so in this moment, the last, as I mentioned, 5 months, I don't drink water at all. I tried once and I felt like, oh, why am I drinking it? I don't feel
So coconut water, what kind of coconut water? From the Thai coconuts, the real ones from like that you don't get, you know, in certain countries you can't get, or the ones that you just buy in the store, which is not so much the same as real coconut water, I guess. I don't know.
Obviously, like anything, even that has different levels, right? But already drinking the fresh coconut that you open in that moment is better. And from what I experienced, what's called the younger coconuts is better. And yeah, ideally, if it's organic, for me, we have ones that come from Thailand, I think. So yeah, that's what
they said those were bad, they were bleached, or or something happened to them, they're not so good or something. I don't know. I remember in Hawaii they had the best coconuts because they weren't like the Thai coconuts. We call them the Thai coconuts.
Yeah, but still, for me, it felt like this water is
it's
way
still
better.
A better level. Yeah, definitely. There's levels, like I always say. That's totally true. I love everything you said so far, and I just want to ask you also. Well, first, this is just quickly. You said quickly this. I just wondered: is it true that free weights is better than the machines? Is that what you're saying, though? Or no?
Actually, I have a whole another perspective. Sorry, say the last part. Sorry to interrupt.
I said I always wondered about that because I'm not a big like weight person. I do yoga and stuff, and then I go to the gym and I think, should I do the machine? Should I do the free weights? What's better? Like, is there better? I don't know. That's why it's funny that when you said that.
I think I have a pretty good answer for that because I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to research the best way to do every single area well for health, which working out is definitely something. If people have more muscle, in some perspective, it's better, but a lot of people do it not in a healthy way, right? If you talk about longevity, for example, if you lift weights in the gym or regardless of how you do it, many people actually don't realize that they have tears in their joints and stuff. So over time, you can have damage, but in the same time, it's better that you stimulate the muscle to grow. So I looked into what is the best way to stimulate the muscles without creating joint damage. And then you realize that the gym doesn't make sense because to stimulate muscle, yes, you need resistance, okay? If you want to grow muscles, you need resistance training. But the problem is our biomechanics. For example, let's say you do something called chest press, right? Or this movement, right? What you realize is how much our body can move from this position versus here. There is a 7 times difference. So let's say you can do here, whatever it is, 10 kilo, just to have a nice number. Here you can do 30, here you can do 70. But in the gym, you would pick the 10 because that 10 doesn't get you injured when you come back here. The problem is because here and there you can do 30 and 70, you cannot fully fatigue the muscles in the full range of motion. So now what people do, because they don't see progress, they start to go to 20, 30 kilo, and they would get progress here, but then here over time, they have joint injury. So it's like you progress, you gain muscle, but in the same time, you feel something is wrong because you start to have pains. Of course, the pains has to do a lot also with how you eat, because when you start to eat raw foods and you dry fast, your skin clears up and you feel like more flexible and so on. So the solution I found recently for that, because I speak with a lot of experts, is with resistance bands, for example. If you use a resistance band, it goes with your biomechanical mechanism, because from here it has less resistance, but the more you push it, it adds up more resistance. So it's kind of correlated with your body, right? The problem
I was going to say that I like the bands. Yeah.
The problem is that if you want to achieve like very like an athlete style, like a lot of strength, a lot of resistance band don't have as much power. And the other thing is, if you do put like big numbers on them, like 50 kilo, 100 kilo and more, your wrist, you can start to have damage on your wrist by pushing it. So there is something that I started recently, and we do it also in the center. It's an invention of one guy. I don't agree with everything he says. He does agree on dry fasting, by the way, but some other things I don't agree. But specifically, he invented something called the X3 bar, which they use resistance bands that can go up to 600 pounds even. and it has an Olympian level of bar. So you can do a lot of movements without creating damage on your wrist, just like in the gym. But now you do it in the right, you do less weight here, more weight there, more weight there. And then you're actually able to fatigue very quickly every area of the muscle. So you actually get better results faster, but you don't create the joint problems. So that's what I recently use, and I feel great. So if you wanted to research that, but that's, you see, we have to always do this kind of thinking to figure out how can we get the result we want, but with less damage, and that always leads to innovation.
Well,
so
what
I
about
hope
just
this helps.
yoga? What about yoga? Yoga, you can do stuff that can build, and you can also, anyway,
Correct.
this is so complicated. I really had a really important question, so I didn't want to get too, but can I ask this really important question that I really want to ask? Okay, so just to give you a little background, because it's about sleep, and I, for over 40 years, I'm trying to go raw vegan. And I knew about this because I had migraines since I'm like 16. And then I went to health resorts. I did a lot of fasting, a lot of water fasting, 40 days on water fast on my own. I've done a lot of things. I've been to Ellie Tom's retreat, Ray's retreat. I've done, now, I mean, when I heard about, that actually breatharianism, I was like so happy, because I had a very hard time with my food addictions, trying to stay on fruit even. And if the fruit is the most optimal fruit, then I'm fine. But if it isn't, then I can't do it. So I can't eat it. And then I'm going back to cook food. So this has been a cycle. And the main thing that's been really hard for me to be consistent in this path that I feel like I'm meant to do, that's taking me forever, but is that I have insomnia. So I don't sleep at all. Since like over 40 years, I cannot fall asleep at all. Like, I'm always in a awake state. Like, if you walk in my room or I hear one little noise, I'm already up anyway. But if I ever did sleep, it maybe be 10, 15 minutes, and that's it. So the first question is this possible that I'm actually living? I can't even believe it sometimes. And I am tired a lot, but I do a lot. Second question is there anything that you have healing? I've tried a million things, EFT, NLP, breathing techniques, anyway, everything, except that I haven't been consistent on a raw diet or a good diet. Then I end up eating, because I'm so tired, I end up having sugar and crap, and the worst crap you could eat, probably, because I'm addicted. And then I just want to, stimulate my body so I can work or do that, be what I have to be. So, and lately I've been trying more dry fasting. I've been trying to do that. I just want to say that even if I eat one bite of cooked food, the next day it's another bite, the next day it's another bite, then I want, like she was saying too, more. So first, if you're fasting, you're so happy with a little water. Then you have water, then you want the juice, then you have juice, then you have juice, and then you want, this has been my life, and I now feel like I'm almost finally ready, because I feel like I had a little breakthrough, but then again, I had so for the past 5 days, I've been kind of water fasting, not dry fasting, just because I don't think I'm ready, because I've been eating such bad foods, like not good foods and dehydrating foods. And then, so I did about 4, 5, 6 days, and then I broke it. And then once I break it, that's it. Then I'm eating like to the moon, like again. And I even did that on a 40-day fast on water. So I think for me, I can't eat. Like, I should not be eating at all, because it just starts something, and then my whole, everything. So anyway, I'm just struggling. I don't want to struggle on this. I wanted it to be easier for me. Just to give you a background why I don't sleep, I think it's subconscious fear. I was very abused when I was young, for 10 years from my stepfather. Then my parents were murdered, and I could just go on and have like a movie story what happened when I was young, and I'm over it, but yet somehow I can't sleep no matter what. Like, that's my biggest problem, and I don't know what to do. And I keep thinking there's a miracle, somebody's going to say something, and then okay, maybe something's going to work. And then I thought, well, if I become breatharian, I know you don't need that much sleep, so then I don't have to worry too much. But till then, I still need to sleep.
All right. Thank you for explaining everything in detail. And first of all, like, you have to be okay with yourself. That's the first thing, because we are all like people, like most of the people are here. People are very determined, right, to do everything. And sometimes that can be our downfall, right? Because if the journey is part of, once you realize that it's about healing the emotions, right? In order to actually be able to feel better on lighter foods and so on, then by sometimes going too fast or too doing these actually amazing milestones, like some of them that you mentioned, it's almost like we are running, we are fighting against it, you know, and we are in that mentality, and that mentality actually blocks the emotions from being released from the body. So while you're still cleaning yourself, it's like you have to kind of sometimes slow down and go with sometimes, yes, change an approach. Like, for example, you mentioned these days you try more the dry fasting. So I would say, forget all of
Only
these.
one time.
Yeah,
only one time I did it. Yeah.
Perfect. So,
but I did a 3-day, you know, when I did the processes a few times, I did a few processes. I did 3.5 days. Now, when I'm within the group and when I'm there and I'm away from home and I don't have to work, it's great. I mean, I have migraines too. That was the main thing. But I do it and I'm fine. And just every time I come back home and back into the swing of life and having to work and all that stuff, it just makes me want to eat. And I know I have to, and I feel like I love myself, and I feel like all those things I know are important. And I feel that there is something, some people say that some people have more of an addiction brain or whatever it is than other people. Like, you start having certain foods and it just.
I would say, yeah. So sometimes it's because you're in a position that you study everything, right? So it's not about what you know, it's about what you apply. So in that case, maybe you need a different approach, right? That's what becomes the obvious. So what I think is that if you sometimes, let's say we do a process, right? We do 3-4 days, which I haven't done this way, by the way, from the first time. And then it's a one-time thing. We think that, oh, now we should be able to do like everything else easily, right? But what I think is the problem with that is, yes, you managed to dry fast, let's say, if somebody did it, or in your case, 40-day water fast, which is an incredible challenge. But the problem is, if of doing it too fast is in the in-betweens. So if you did it slowly, right, you give yourself more time to notice the traumas and to heal them, right? One at a time, instead of when you do a big thing, they are all coming all in the same time, and maybe you resolve some of them, but not permanently, right? We want to do it permanently. So what I suggest to you, because you know the struggle in that position is you have thousands of ideas what you can do. So you have to focus on something and commit to it for a while, that it's probably the most potent, but also principle based, that it makes sense that you can progress. So I would say, again, the idea of the weekly dry fasting and slightly to adjust the intermediate dry fasting window of consumption, but very slowly. Start with something way smaller than what you think you can do, and do that, but commit to it for the next 12 weeks, right? But then really focus, because for you it's very important, from what I'm hearing, is focus as you're fasting to really ask yourself questions and observe, like, what are the emotions, and write them down and try to figure that out, because that is very important. Because it's not just about being able to fast, it's using the fast to observe the emotions. It's almost like a mechanism to realize what am I craving for? Why is it happening? And for you in particular, I mentioned you have a lot of trauma. So I feel this in particular can really help you. And if you have not actually up until this point practiced a lot of this, I would say regular dry fasting rather than more big jump dry fasting, I really think it will help you. I really think, because
I will. I am. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And what you notice is that, for me, it really releases trapped emotions way better than any other fasting. So
the dry fasting, or just the one
the
day?
dry
You
fasting.
mean the dry fasting?
Yeah. And one last thing I want to add to that, while you're doing that habit, use your mind power, because that's sometimes we think it's so simple that we don't use it. So you know, the meditation we did in the beginning, start to connect with your heart and set intentions. I whatever you realize is your difficulty in that moment. Let's say you realize that for you, you go a lot back and forth between this. So ask the right question. Ask in the most benevolent outcome to gently and gradually improve and heal my trapped emotions and so on. But ask for it every day. Talk to your body. This is very important. It might sound silly in the beginning, but as you observe it more, it really works. Your body is literally listening to you. So do more of that while you're doing the dry fasting and the observations about the emotions. And in the moment that a specific emotions comes up and you realize it, then use this thing. Visualize, right, these specific emotions, and you go from 0 to 100 to clear it out, for example, as long as it's in your highest self best interest in that moment. So use these techniques. They're actually working. And I have been using it. I'm using it now like a normal thing, like day to day as things come up. And I'm manifesting things so quickly and I progress because I use that. So I hope this helps. And actually, one more thing about sleep.
But for the sleeping, yeah, I wanted to see
Yeah.
if you know anything I could do here.
Yeah, so...
But just real quick about the dry fasting. So I thought I want to dry fast, but I thought I should slowly get into it. So start with water fasting. I stopped fasting for the last many years because I get so sick, not only I get I get tired, but also migraines. So I was trying to get ease into it more. But now you're saying maybe I could just do the dry fasting. It doesn't matter. Right?
Okay, this is a very important thing to clarify. What I say is that the dry fasting is the more potent, right? Because as I said, in some perspective, water is not always as good as in some moments, right? So the dry fasting is a natural state, at least when you sleep, right? So that's more potent. So I would rather that you do, again, that's my opinion, right? That you would do less fasting, but with a potent approach, because that clears deeply.
Okay.
So
one
that's
day dry fast, maybe 2 days if I feel like it.
Even less, even if you feel, like, for example, my father did, I never thought he would do anything with that, but he was inspired somehow. And he did, I think, 16 hours extra every week of dry fasting. And he tried all kinds of things before. And every week he was losing half a kilo, but it's not just the kilos. And now he lost like 10 kilo just from that, a small window, but he kept consistent, right? But he feel better, he sleep a lot better. So the key, what most people miss, and I will say this again now, is very important. Most people underestimate the power of consistency, even if it's less time. They think that has to be big, but then sooner than later, you drop that. And in the big picture, you actually didn't do as much as if you did little, but every single week for a long time. And then you're actually more realistic because it's a difficult process. So you give your body more time to heal the emotions. But when you do it too fast, you're actually doing the same thing why your trapped emotions are staying there in the first place, because when you're eating, you're hiding, you're running away from it. But by doing a big process, you are doing the same thing. You're running away from it. So you pick something that is at the core principle, very potent, like the dry fasting, and do the amount of time that you can stick for a long time. Usually when you are in this psychology, like I see you are, and I am also like this overachiever, it's better to actually go less than what you think you can do. And
I
practice
got it.
that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. That sounds really good.
And then about sleep, I would just add a few more comments. Look into grounding, sleeping grounded. Have you looked into that before?
Well, grounding, like, walking barefoot, like I think you were talking about, or somebody was talking about, you were talking about, right? I always try to walk barefoot everywhere and as much as possible, and go to the beach, and even just around the house or everywhere. I've been doing that for a long time. So if that's I don't know if that's the answer.
And do you know by any chance if you have metals or springs system in your bed?
I don't know. It's Tempur-Pedic mattress, and I don't know if that
Yeah, so I will say this because through many different stories I heard by using the biophoton therapy, which sometimes we see somebody keeps having a condition called the spin inversion, that your energy rotates in another way. Even when we fix it, it comes back. And many times it comes back to the fact that the beds, when a manufacturer makes a bed, and let's say there are two metals on each side, right? They see it just how it looks like. They don't measure it, the electromagnetic fields. And one metal can be here, this magnetic field, and one like that. And then you are in between it. So now, while you're in between two different fields, the whole night, you are getting kind of imbalanced. So if specifically you're struggling with the sleep, it's not just the grounding. It could be that there's some, not necessary, there is some expensive equipment to measure that, so I cannot tell you for sure, but I know that I heard many times that when that was fixed, when the bed didn't have these metals, or that you use a grounding mat, for example, the sleep dramatically improves if that was the exact problem. Another thing you can do, you can
a grounding mat, sorry, a grounding mat that you buy and put on top of your bed, just called a grounding mat?
Yes. The one I use specifically is called the Lucasana grounding mat. And there is a bed system that is created based on all the things that are healthier. If you still want to use a bed, I mean, some people sleep on the ground. It's called the Samina.
I just want to say that when I slept, like camping, if I sleep on the ground, obviously it's supposed to be good, but it didn't help me sleep. Like if I'd be sleeping outside, even like nothing, I would try
but
again, I'll try that.
So yeah, try grounding while sleeping and try to look into the science behind where magnetic field caused from different metals could cause an issue. And that could be that. And one time you can try to sleep on another bed and that is different and see if you feel a difference. And another thing, it's something everybody here can do, because some of these things are more expensive, right? But something that is not expensive is there is certain plants that you can put in your bedroom that don't need much light, and they do amazing things. If you have a set of them, like in my bedroom, I have 30 plants, and specific plants. I cannot remember the exact. I think there was a study with NASA for plants that are good. But from that, you can kind of understand what plants are good for your bedroom. And some will purify the air. Some would make the room more cooler. Some would make another type of toxins go away. So they actually become like a healing team all night long. And that's very powerful. And you can spend a few hundred euros or something like that, and you can have a lot of them. And since I implemented that, I sleep a lot better. So that's another kind of thing you can do together with the grounding. Of course, there's a lot of basic things that you already probably know about making the room darker and so on. And the other thing I would say, sometimes it's not just what you eat. Like the lighter you eat, you think you're doing great, but it's sometimes even better that you eat heavier, but you don't eat that late. That's very important for sleep. I want to ask you actually, like, how late do you normally eat?
I've done everything in the book. I mean, there's a lot of times I do eat late, and I realize that, but many times I don't, and it doesn't make a difference. Sometimes I work late, so I eat late, but I know I shouldn't, but it really doesn't make a difference to me. Like, even if I don't eat at all, or if I eat, or if I eat early, I think but if it's a subconscious thing, then would these things still help? The grounding and all that? Like, if it's subconscious fear I have in my...
Also, yes, but in the end, as you say, you have to deal with the emotions. But try, besides the day in the week of dry fasting or 8 hours, whatever it is, try also to expand just a little bit, maybe 3, 4, 5 hours of extra dry fasting towards the end of the day before you sleep. Try these two things, and
I dry fast a lot. Like like I said, I have to push myself to drink water. I don't even want water, but I think I have to have. So now I'm going to even make more of a conscious effort, even if it's not all day, like you're saying, at least if it's consecutive, like not, so I would like take a few hours and just not drink. I can do that for sure.
Yeah. And also try, sorry, Arik, this last thing, try
things
like Qigong, because or forms to actually cultivate energy, but stick to it. It's very important, because
I just want to say about Qigong, just because I learned that from, I think, Ellie Tom, but then I've done it, I've done all those things, and I never found it that I liked it. And then I listened to Marcus' video, Marcus, You probably know Marcus. He has a great video, but he's the, he started saying, and Atlantis also, Atlantis, where most people would say, like Ellie Tom says, and the other Kai, the breathing, you have to do Qigong, you have to do this, something to cultivate the energy. Everybody says that. But then a couple people that I've heard, which I just found it very like relief in it for me, because a lot of times I'm too tired to do Qigong or do something. I'm too tired. And so they said, we're born breatharians. We don't have to do anything. You could do if you want, but you don't have to do anything. And I thought that was like amazing, that,
I think that at the essence, this is true, that we don't need it, but on the way to really, truly subconsciously getting it, I think it helps to use different forms to relax your body, because maybe somebody like Marcus is so relaxed because he released so many trapped emotions that for him, he doesn't need to do it. But maybe for somebody like that is on the journey, you can do Qigong, you do another form of meditation, you find what is right for you, what makes you relax. Just the form of relaxing helps you, so I feel this is the kind of subtle difference there, but at the essence, I think it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay. Laurie, I just want to point out that you got some message from Chris in the chat, so you're welcome to read it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So I think, PurEL, I think we have to schedule a few more webinars like that, because it's lots of information and you are such a wealth of knowledge. So I think we just need to do to schedule another one and another one. Yeah, just to cover all those points that you sent to me. But guys, but I do have a few more questions. I just wanted to ask guys if you have any other questions. If anyone has any more questions. Okay, then I will ask you, PurEL. So I am curious, when a person comes to you, what's your purpose about this person? Like, is it like perfect physical healing, or how would you define, for example, when you have a new client, what's your vision for this person?
Do you mean more like
what do you want to reach? What kind of things do you want to reach with that person?
Look, my mission overall, first of all, is to be the most aligned with my higher self. And the more I am, it seems that, there are some things that I'm supposed to do. But what I want to say is, I'm really curious by this idea, because I go to a point that I realize that I can literally manifest whatever my heart desires, right? But it's so interesting for me, this idea of to create an environment or to support the environment where everybody can heal themselves. Imagine a world like this. Imagine a world that, people can live hundreds of years, and that brings patience. And through the patience, people do things in harmony, and imagine all the amazing things that can happen. So that's part of my motivation. It's an exciting thing for me, right? It's like a game, figuring it out. But besides that, right, that it's exciting, like I really think that the most powerful thing is that when somebody know how to heal themselves, I think that's so powerful. So if you can get to a point with the least amount of money, least amount of time for somebody to be able to heal himself, and also on top of that, be able to do it with more types of people that psychologically have different way of thinking. That's another thing. And in a more scalable way, this is very interesting for me. Like, for example, some of the devices that we are looking into now, it's almost like spiritual devices, like you can say 5D devices, that there is some things like with scalar technology, for example, where you can create such a powerful environment, even up to 1,000 people in the same time, where the machine doesn't heal you, but it creates such an amazing environment that doesn't exist anymore in this world because of all the, basically we are in a microwave all day. So but you can create something that can impact a lot of people. You can even make a grid of it around the world that essentially it's so harmonic that now people very fast are healing themselves. Their own cells start to do it. So that very motivates me a lot, that I know that there are things like this out there. Normally nobody's that crazy to connect the spiritual and the business side of things together. And in addition to that, imagine you can do something like that, and in the same time you can educate people on knowledge, how they can heal themselves, so that even while they are healing, right, they don't, when they go home, they don't do it again to themselves, right? That's very powerful. So that motivates me a lot. And I feel after the last few years, like it's like a push, like something has to be done, and people want to feel better. And I feel that the more that I'm healing myself, the more that it's really easier to do things in a nice way, that actually benefits everybody and not just you, but it's because really you start to realize what I say more and more, this oneness consciousness. You don't just think it, because in the beginning you think, yeah, you get it, but you don't really do it. But as you start to experience it, that you realize literally we are all connected, and by helping yourself, you help other. By helping other, you help yourself. And then it starts to, let's use all of our skills to do that, right? And not be, I always had this thing that I'm not bound by systems, and I can see through it, and I can kind of break through different things. And as I grow up, I use it in the beginning for regular business, but now I start to understand the purpose of all of this. They prepare me to be able to do that. But in the end, again, people heal themselves. Nobody heals you. But being able to be like a bridge for people to see that, and on a massive scale, that is really interesting for me. And to make these powerful impacts, and to figure out the right things, because people are stuck psychologically. Even when they find the right information, there is so much psychological struggle that when you have more ways, more tools, so to say, to show them in different directions, then finally they solve something. Like we have people in the center that they tried all kinds of things, nothing worked for them. And I love these situations, because then I can really figure out something new, like how to, and now having so many tools, not just the devices, but the knowledge and ideas, what they can change in their house, and fasting and so on. It's like the game, and then you crack the code. And for me, it's so satisfying when somebody gets better. And in the beginning, it's not easy, because a lot of these devices, for example, that are actually good, are actually in tune with nature, which is very important. I don't like the invasive things, right? They're very expensive. So normally nobody does this. So I'm trying to kind of use all of the things I build up, as an entrepreneur in my youth, together with my new awareness, so to say, which I have a lot to improve on. For me, every month I keep going, and it's not easy also to do all of it in the same time, but I love it. I love what I do. And I really think that sometimes all we need is a little faith and patience with ourselves to do things little by little. And then in the big picture, we actually did a lot. And yeah.
Wow. That's so inspiring. PurEL, and my other question is, for example, if a person comes to your center or comes to you for coaching, how do you diagnose them, or how do you evaluate their situation, and how do you fit tools to that particular person?
Right. So first of all, when they come, we do like an intro session, and they fill a questionnaire to just understand from their story. And of course, we talk to them. And then we kind of introduce them to everything we have. And the nice thing is we have some measurement devices as well, that are not invasive measurements. Like you have to do a scan that puts radiation on you. No, there is another way to measure your brain waves, for example, or you can measure heart rate variability, or with some things by the therapy alone. When you do the therapy, you can notice what is less good, what is better. Like you do the biophoton therapy. Oh, you see the liver needs help. This needs help. So for example, there is one device that is called hypoxia training, like altitude training. Like when people are in the mountains, they live longer. Why? Because their body gets used to be more oxygen efficient. They keep more oxygen in their blood. So we have one device that puts you for a few minutes with less oxygen, more, then less and more. And after a few sessions, you notice that people are able to sustain a higher oxygenation in their body because we are measuring them live. This is called biofeedback. But this is very important to have biofeedback to really have the best precise result for people. And then you would see that with a lower level of oxygenation that you give them, they keep the same oxygenation as before because they train their body to do it. That's why things like Wim Hof and so on is working. But now you have a tool that even if somebody cannot perceive some of these things, they can do it with a machine, right? But through this measurement, for example, seeing the first time how somebody does in this therapy, what level of oxygenation is a lower oxygenation is required to get him to the training zone. You know how healthier or not he is on that regard. And so now you start to collect like a bunch of different metrics. And now you can really start to understand what is happening. And by doing certain therapies and seeing what comes back, you can start to question, and it always comes back to questioning. And releasing trapped emotions. So it's really advanced in that regard, and we are trying to make it like that and connect it, actually to connect technology with the original ancient things to do, right? Like fasting and emotions, and I think that's the future, right? To actually make technology harmonious. Like it's like the same thing, and I'll just say it lastly, like with money, like a lot of people say that money is the evil in the world and everything, but there is a way, and it's true, a lot of problems are created through our attachments with money and how we perceive it. But I believe that the future of this world is to convert this from the shadow level to the gift of it, or to a more harmonious state. So you create with money harmonious environments, you know. For example, just like fasting, for example, is absence, but at the core, there is something missing there. You want to convert it into lighter energy cultivation, right? So it's more empowering. So so there's a lot of things like that. But yeah, I hope this answers some of that.
Yes, absolutely. And how would you go about working with someone online who are not in front of you physically? Could you also have the same precision in fitting the tools to that particular person?
Yeah, so that's why I started now a group, like a Telegram group, because I have so many friends that see everything that I'm changing and going through, and they want to know more. Or I have clients that come, and I want to give them access to this beyond the therapy, so they get more. So we started a group, and for now it's free, of course. And so through that, I try to help people, but I'm still trying to find a way to scale, because when you do everything I'm trying to do, it's so many moving parts. And I haven't done work with people online yet. I do usually in person. It's something that I can be open to do, but I'm really trying to find ways that at scale we can help a lot of people. And yeah, but I guess the one thing, if you wanted to be in touch with me more, is the YouTube channel. I'm trying to do more videos, and also if you want to join our free Telegram group, we can do that also. So yeah.
Yes, Ravi. So that answers your question, because Ravi has written here in the chat. Hello, Arik. Maybe PurEL may cover at the end. Does he coach people? If so, is it in person or virtual? Thank you. So I think it's pretty much
another thing I would say, just to say, is that my goal is to do it in person with a lot of people. That's why I'm trying to bring these technologies that you can have a stadium with 1,000 people in the same time, work with them, right? And in the center, we work with people more one-on-one here in Spain. But we will try to do a lot of this in the future, because still, like, in person is a different touch. But through the group, at least I can bring a lot of my principles and way of thinking to these things. And sometimes somebody can ask something, and I just send, and then it might help. So
PurEL. And for example, if anyone from our group or any of the viewers of YouTube, if they would like to get personal coaching from you, but they cannot go to Spain, so would you be willing to coach them personally over the internet, or for now you wouldn't do that? Like, what do you think?
I might be open. What I like the most is to go on calls like this
Yes.
where there is like at least 10 people live, right? And then like, for example, the conversation I had with some of you, like with Lori before, and I go back and forth, and then I can really help the same way, right? But then everybody else can kind of resonate and say, oh, I learned this. And so I like it because it has the personal touch, but it's still a bigger scale because more people can benefit. So these type of things I'm more than willing to do. Yeah, if you want to do more calls like this, and I love it when people have questions and we talk, because through the conversation you can kind of see their beliefs and kind of like try to shift in another way. So I think this is something that is missing sometimes, because we watch a lot of videos, but it's nice to see real people's stories and how to understand and to figure out what are the things. And yeah,
Absolutely.
I like to do this.
Absolutely, yeah. And I also wanted to add that if we do that like once in a month or once in 2 months, then we will also see your personal evolution, your personal learning. You will probably learn new things, you will discover new things, and you will be able to share with us. And yeah, so it will be a beautiful process.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do it. Yes.
Yeah. Now Ravi is asking here if he can ask some more questions. Yeah. Yes, Ravi. So you can unmute yourself and please do. Yeah, Ravi. Because Ravi is asking, can I ask a follow up? Yes, Ravi. Are you here?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Thanks, Eric. PurEL.
Sure.
You said, I heard briefly that you are doing some coaching in Spain. Is that right?
Some what in Spain?
Coaching in Spain. So we have to come to Spain.
Yeah, so I'm in Marbella in Spain, and we have our center, our longevity center here. And through this and the team, like we do this with people. Yes.
Okay. How long typically you do it for? If I'm interested, how long do you think I need to stay in Spain?
Everything depends, healing is a lifelong journey, but of course you want to come probably for at least a week, I would say, for daily visits, at least 5 times to really get an impact. Like anything, nothing at one time is magic, although through talking like one of the things we have in the center, like Mario, one of our operators, as I mentioned, he can work to figure out trap emotions in your body. And sometimes in one session, it just goes away and you feel it, or you cry or something, and suddenly your hands move in more directions. So there are some things, but of course, anything depends. But at least I would say if you want to come for a week, now, of course, if you come for a month, then we can do more things. Yeah, that's the short answer. But usually there's a lot of things you can do on your own that just by realizing it and not procrastinating to do it, you don't have to depend on nobody, right? It's just that it's also nice to be in an environment.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if you ever come, our center is called Oxyzone Marbella. So
can you put links to all that things you were talking about on the chat?
Lori, we always put all the links and contact details below each video.
Yeah.
You will find it tomorrow.
And also,
because
I wanted to think of coming too. Do you think it would be a good idea for me to come there? Do we stay at the center and sleep there? You said something about 5 times coming into there, but is it a place where you sleep, or you have to sleep somewhere else?
In this moment, we don't have rooms to sleep. It's more like we have like a nice villa, and there's a lot of different rooms for different therapies. Look, I want to do these kind of things. I miss I didn't travel for a while. I used to go to masterminds and events. And so it's something that we could organize potentially soon as everything is starting to brighten up. So in the future, we might organize some retreats or things like this here. Marbella is so beautiful and it's so nice. But in this moment, it's more about we have the center operating, and if you want to come, we can work with you.
There's a place close by we could stay, I guess, somewhere close by.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. Do you think any of the therapies you would do there could help me sleep? It would be a good idea to try, or?
I think that there could be, of course, some breakthroughs, but I really think sincerely that the things I mentioned before, they would be more important that you do them consistently, more than even to come here, I would say.
The grounding and the dry fasting and the grounding you could put links also to what I'm supposed to get for grounding, for on
Sure.
top of the bed. As far as I think you said only for grounding barefoot and putting something on the bed. Was there something else that I have to do for grounding that you mentioned?
Well, what I do is 24/7 walking barefoot for the last 7 months. So completely all the time. That goes beyond just sometimes grounding, but your posture improves because you only walk barefoot, and then actually your energy flows better through your hips. So technically, but there could be millions of things to discuss, but I'm more than happy to send it later because I'm also in the group chat. I think the fasting group WhatsApp
yes,
chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my feet get so dirty when I go barefoot, and then I can't even wash them. They don't come out clean.
I have a video about that. If it's interesting for you, I explain all the things that people usually think that is too difficult, but then you realize, it's not so hard actually.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, guys. So we have been conversing for 2 hours more or less. So does anyone have any last 1 or 2 questions for PurEL, or we are going to wrap it up for today and then we'll just schedule another time? You have your last chance now to ask your question, if you have any.
Arik, can I have one quick question? Quick question. Yeah. So, PurEL, you said barefoot walking. What I'm concerned is, I live in the US. Even here, I see people spitting on the sidewalks, throwing cigarettes, throwing these used drink cans, beer bottles, all the stuff like on the road. So don't you think our feet will get infected with somebody's mucus, somebody's spit, all the stuff? Don't you think so? How do you handle it?
It's a multi-layered question, which I can answer everything perfectly. It's just, let me see. So,
but you have it on your video, probably the answer to that, right? The video also, that you made.
Yeah, but first of all, about stepping on glass or something sharp, for example, if you gradually go in harder and harder surfaces in the beginning, it's not, you don't go immediately the first day and go on glass. Then your feet actually builds up such strong callus. It's still nice, and it's you don't feel bad. It's actually a nice thing. It's like a shoe layer. Even if then you step on something sharp, which happens, like I walk in the mountains few hours barefoot, and you step on sharp things, but you don't feel them anymore because you have this. So the important thing is to do it gradually, and to stick for it for long enough. So you have that. That's for that. Then about the element of dirty things, let's say. I mean, once you realize the power of the free electrons and that they're such powerful antioxidants, and you compare that with stepping on some dirty things, and sometimes maybe you want to clean your foot or something, it's nothing in comparison, and you feel it over time. And the other thing is, when you walk barefoot, you start to be very aware. You think that you would step on stuff, but that happens when you wear shoes. When you walk barefoot, like you literally go with the biomechanism of the body, and actually somehow the body doesn't step on things. And even if it's some dirty thing, from my perspective, I researched a lot of things of viruses and stuff like this and how it really works. And I'm not concerned with that. That's the simplest I would say about that. But yeah, the benefits totally outdo what seems to be the disadvantages. And at some point you realize that when you wear socks and shoes, that's actually the unnatural thing to do. You have bacteria and sweat and all these things, but this way you don't have it. So actually you have less dirt.
What about bees? I was going barefoot and I stepped on a bee and got stung by a bee. Then I stopped doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, but for me, it doesn't happen. I don't know. Maybe it's part of the journey, right? And the more you get used to it, and you deal with your emotions, these things somehow don't happen, but it's more gradual. And again, even if you step on something sharp, like a bee, glass, anything, it's only sharp because your feet are baby feet, because we have not worked for more than a year completely barefoot all the time. Once we do that, now we are more, our feet are strong, and it doesn't happen. It's just that nobody in normal society goes more than a few months even completely barefoot, that he can start to develop the ability that it's normal. Like stones don't hurt you, other things don't hurt you. So I had this faith because, again, through thorough research, I saw people that do it for 10 years explaining these things to me. And then I had the courage to do it. And then, of course, I confirmed everything as I experienced. And over time, when you stick to it, everything else gets very easy with that. So I hope this makes sense.
Yeah.
Much,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, PurEL. Okay, guys. So I think we're going to wrap it up for today. And PurEL is probably very dark at your place because we don't see anything anymore. Almost. So it's something that is related to your lifestyle, that you do not turn the lights on when it's dark or something like that, or
well, to be honest, I don't have great lights here. I can go and turn it on, but actually recently I changed the lights to, that's another biohack you can say. I changed to lights that less harm the eyes, because when you go in this route and you become more and more detoxified, things that never bother you start to bother you, like the smells, like they start to get super strong, or the light. So I noticed this, and I either use better lights for the eyes, or I don't use lights. But not, I'm not forcing it. I could turn the lights. It's not an issue. But
yeah. Okay, maybe we will cover it next time when we talk, because it's an interesting subject as well.
What I want to say is, as you saw from the subjects I sent you, there is so much to talk about. But what I like is, rather than to talk too many things in one time, to go in depth, to reach the point that people find aha moments. Like, it's like, oh, this was missing, this part, because then people can really permanently solve something. And but yeah, there's so many important aspects. And one thing, just to finalize, I would say is that people too much depend on moving through one area. For example, you want to heal, and you know fasting is very powerful.
Yeah.
But you have other areas in your life, your health, your business, your relationship. And so sometimes by improving those other things, that's why you are stuck on one thing. But once you improve those other areas, now it's easier. And there is some things that I would like to share about how do you do that. And I think we can talk about it probably also next time.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so important, this kind of holistic approach, not to get closed up just on one thing. So important. And also next time, today we're not going to get into that, but your idea about Aranka is raising her hand. Okay, Aranka, so we'll...
And I will just quickly turn the lights. Maybe it's better. 1 second.
Okay, good.
Just a quick question.
Yes, Aranka. We will. I just wanted to finish the sentence, PurEL. So
sorry.
Next time you also mentioned one very wise thing, in my opinion. You said that one thing that might be good for one person, it might be poison for another person, according to the state of that person. So I think. Also, if we delve into that particular subject, and I think there is lots of depth in this particular idea.
And this is why I said before, never to have 100% or 0% or absolute ideas, because the way life works is not in absolutes, and you always have to especially when you are doing a healing journey. You are making drastic changes, and then you have to stop and think for a moment, is what served me before now doesn't serve me, or I have to adjust? And many times the answer is yes, it needs to be adjusted. So it depends on the circumstances, and that's kind of the extra wisdom that helps, I feel, that because otherwise people follow the same protocol what helped them in the beginning, but now they're stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, and that's my idea behind this group, that we don't have any particular agenda. So I don't mind bringing a raw vegan 1 week who healed on raw vegan diet, but on the other week bring a carnivore person or a keto person, and they will just talk about their journey, because we are different. So and people heal on different modalities. So, and it's important to remain open-minded and learn from everyone, and to really intuitively pick whatever works for you.
And in reality, if we realize at some point that we are all one, then technically you can learn from anybody. It doesn't matter how you see him. There's always something to learn, and it's very good mentality to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, Aranka, so before we wrap it up, please ask your question.
No, next time, when we have more time, I want to hear his full-fledged opinion since he's been biohacking so much. Thank you.
I see.
I'll be here next
Okay,
time.
Ranka, but
Sorry.
we are going to meet again. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, PurEL. So thank you so much, brother. It was pure pleasure talking to you. We are going to put all the contact details below this video. And guys, just feel free to contact PurEL, arrange your meetings, come to Spain, join his YouTube channel, Telegram, etc. We are here to learn from each other.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Arik, for hosting. I really like this opportunity to speak and share like my experiences. And yeah, I'm more than happy to come back. And like it's amazing because sometimes the more you show what you learned already, then you kind of it's like you have extra things that come to you. So it's almost like an amazing experience. And for me, it's
I was
also
about to maybe throw it out. It's still, I don't know if I should keep it.
Okay, sorry, PurEL.
Yes.
Sorry.
So yeah, I enjoyed a lot, and I'm more than happy to continue coming. And I love this, especially these personal discussions with people. It's great.
That's the idea. Yeah, I love it too a lot. Thank you
so much. Thank you, both of you. Thank you so much. Have a great day, blessed day.
And thank you guys for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys. Take care.